Yeah, let's get onto the court now to talk some netball here on the SportsMax zone. Jamaica completed a series sweep of the Margaret Beckford Sunshine Series against South Africa, winning the third and final test by 11 goals, 58-47 at the National Indoor Sports Centre in Kingston on Saturday. Now, the girls led from the start, scoring 5 goals before the Spar Proteas netted their first, triggered by an outstanding defensive effort from player of the game and captain Shamira Sterling Humphrey. Now, player of the series, goal shooter Shimona Jacques again missed just 2 shots to finish the game with 37 from 39 attempts, while Shanice Beckford repeated her game 2 performance, taking 1 more shot to end with 14 from 18 attempts. For the visitors, Merne Vandenberg was the best shooter with 30 goals from 33 attempts, supported by Kamajela Maseko, coming off the bench this time to score 16 from 17. Time to hear now from both coaches, starting with South Africa's Jenny Van Dyke.
Keep the margin quite consistent. Obviously, we want to improve on that margin through the games that we play, but this is such a formidable side, and you know, they at the very highest peak of their careers, we're only starting off. So to me, so many lessons learned and so much we can take out of this, and like I'm saying, we are coming, be ready for us.
First, we have to thank South Africa for, you know, a top team that has really pushed us physically, mentally. And, you know, it was going to be a very competitive game, as you see it in the last game also. But I think for our girls, we were looking on building for each game. I think we did that well. I think there were good patches in our games that we really wanted to improve on tonight and, you know, and give a much pounding performance. I think we did it in spurts, but we're looking forward to the journey ahead, and a lot of things that we have to correct, a lot of things that we did well that we want to build on. And, you know, we have to give the girls credit.
Yes, Sasha Gay Henry Wright, and before her, Jenny Van Dyke. Now, former Sunshine Girls assistant coach and netball analyst Sean Murdoch joins us on set to review the series and that third test, of course. Sean, as usual, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Let's start with something that we requested last week, and we got it.
Yes. A
capacity crowd at the NISC to watch the Sunshine Girls play. That must have felt awesome.
Awesome. And I'd like to start there in terms of just thanking the fans, firstly, for supporting netball, because without the fans showing up and doing, supporting the girls how they did, and without the teams, the players themselves participating how they did, and of course the sponsors would not be having this discussion now. So I want to thank those people firstly, and the atmosphere was electric. I sat all the way up in the rafters, but it was very good, and it's good to see that there's an announcement for persons to shift in the seat so that others are able to come inside, and that's good for netball. I'm around the sport for a while. I think the last time we had this much crowd would have been 2003 at the World Cup, and I'm not even sure we had this much crowd at that time. But it's really good. It means that netball is going in the right direction for Jamaica. Yeah,
very much the case. I do remember 2003 and just how the semi-final that we lost convincingly, unfortunately, and that third place against England had a wonderful crowd there, but definitely this, I think, topped that. There was a lovely discussion, some would maybe even say robust, during the live coverage about who the player of the series should be. A few names came up, Latanya Wilson, one of them, Shimona Jacques was eventually named player of the series. Tough one, but do you think they got it right?
Absolutely, spot on. Never thought it was a tough decision at all. From where I saw it, it was an easy pick for Shimona to get the player of the series, just in terms of how she carried the shooting end for us. Of course, if you think about the substitutions we made, apart from Shamira, the defenders barely got rest for the most part. But whenever Shimona left the court, you saw the challenge for the team in terms of getting the ball to the post and getting it with ease to the post. Of course, she's also very accurate, missing 2 goals, 3 goals of the 37, 38, 40 attempts per game. So that's very consistent, and so it was an easy pick for me.
Yeah, and you know, when Jamaica played South Africa at the last World Cup in 2023, the final score was 67-49. That was an 18-goal difference. No game in this series did the Sunshine Girls dominate by that margin, but we've all reveled and said that this is an improving team. So why wasn't the margin larger?
That's easy.
Yeah, I think so too.
That's easy, and I'm not even going to say it because we never had Janelle, who is the world's best. But just the coach trying different combinations and giving players rest is easily why you'd say that it probably wasn't as wide as it was at the World Cup. But you have to think about a 4-year cycle now. So she's preparing for the leading up to the next World Cup in 2027. And so it's now time for her to make the different, try the different things, try different combinations. So it's experimenting time. And of course, so I feel like once she realized that it was comfortable enough, she was able to make the rotations she did. And I think that is the reason why we never got the larger margins. Commendations to the team for how they started in Game 3 as well.
Yeah.
That was like fire in terms of how they got out the blocks. But there were gaps because we allowed them to score about 3 or 4 goals unanswered. And against teams like Australia, New Zealand and England, we can't afford to allow them to get back a look into the game at all.
Yeah, and you know, as you speak about the different options and the fact that coach had the beauty of experimenting a bit, I want to talk about now the captaincy of Shamira Sterling-Humphrey and how she went about this entire series. Because as we know, you know, we didn't have the regular players. Well, I'm talking about the star players that usually give this team a lot of strength. But I felt personally that I was really, really impressed with Shamira. What say you?
Absolutely agreed, and we must thank our rivals Australia for that in terms of her being in the Suncorp setup. She's a part of their leadership group at the Adelaide Thunderbirds, and so she got that exposure in terms of leading, and so it showed in our game just how she led, and of course she's one of those players who, even without being titled the captain, she's one of those players who can spark the vibe in the camp. One specky intercept and the team lifts to another level. So she's very good at that, and she has that personality to get the team to rally around, completely different from Janelle Fowler or regular captain in terms of how she leads. But both are effective at what they do, and really, really proud of how she has grown as a leader as well.
Yeah, and when we think about the overall effect now, back-to-back series victory, Sunshine Girls continues to be dominant. Do you feel as if, you know, moving forward, so I want to think of it from this perspective, right? Like when you're used to seeing like Janelle Fowler, she's not here, but we know when a Janelle Fowler is here, what she can do. Of course, some of these players that would have really stepped up in this series will have to take a backseat when the regular players come in. Do you think that contention for places now makes it even more competitive?
I'm not sure they're going to have to step back.
You don't think so?
No, I feel like the girls are at a place now where they're all doing well, and they all want to do well, and they all realize that it's a hard way into the team now, and I feel like the inclusion of the players, as I said in the last interview, the English players will lift the level of competition.
So good.
Exactly. So they'll definitely lift the level of competition internally, and so you'll force players to do well. Shimona had the unfortunate feeling of not going to the last World Cup, and she was very devastated. Of course, any player would have been, and so I'm sure the next Commonwealth Games and World Cup is definitely on her mind. And so if you have players competing, then there's no, for me, nobody's spot is guaranteed. Janelle is also at, I want to say, the peak of her career. She's now going to have a baby. We're not sure what the life after the baby looks like at this age. We're hoping it's good though, because she's a force to break on with. So we're hoping that she comes back even better. We realize that in sport now, women are coming back better after babies, and so
especially in Jamaica.
Exactly. So hoping that's the same for Janelle. But I feel like it's a competitive environment, and all the players will have to work hard to get a spot on the team when the final 12 is picked. It is good. It makes them better.
Yeah, and Sean, the point was made earlier on about the last time that the Jamaicans played South Africa, the victory margin was significantly more. Can you say something about South Africa's team, though, because they're getting ready for international netball again this weekend, going to the Vitality Cup in England against the hosts, Malawi and Uganda. So in the space of a month, they'll be having high-quality opposition. So they are obviously on a program for improvement. And there were elements of their game, I thought, in this entire series, that they look really competitive against the Sunshine Girls. Assess for me their game, and how improved do you think they are as world number 5?
Yeah, spot on. They really are good in terms. I think if there was any weak areas for South Africa, I thought would have been in the defensive area. Their attackers, as good as our defenders were, they kept us very honest. They kept us busy. The turnovers that we got, they were far and few in terms of interceptions from our defensive unit. And it's just that when it happens, because it looks so nice and the crowd gets behind the girls, it looks like it's something that is happening often. But it was really far in terms of the amount of intercepts we were able to pull off their attacking team. I thought the goal attack showed us up a lot in terms of her court craft, in terms of getting away, finding a way all the time, just slipping somewhere.
That's Maseko.
Finding a way to just enter the circle from somewhere and always getting our defenders together, and she's all alone on the next side. So they have done well. They are missing their goalkeeper, their first-string goalkeeper. Currently would have gotten injured in the first game, and so they would have missed her and her height as well. And they, of course, they have their key defender, Carla Pretorius, who never came across because she wanted to spend time with her family. So they never had their full team either. No excuse, but I feel like they're also on the up. You said that they're playing next week, in England, but they've also played in the African Nations Cup, so they've been playing a lot. One of the luxury that South Africa has is that they play a lot, and they're able to afford to play much more than we're able to play, and so it's a good time for her to lose. And as she said in her interview, I've heard her saying that it's good to play the best, and in losing it takes as a lesson just to be better. And I feel like they're going to go back and do their homework, because you could look at their faces throughout and you know that they were not pleased. They understood that they're playing a better team, but they weren't just comfortable losing. They wanted to do well, and so I expect them to come back better.
Yeah, I have a tough question for you, because as a former assistant coach, I would want you to assess the coach Sasha Gay and her performance less than a year into the job. A rating out of 1 to 10. 10 of course, being the best.
10 being the highest.
Yes.
There's always room for improvement. So congrats to Sasha first for coming into the role and doing well. She would have only lost one game.
Yes, against England, in England.
And drew one, and everything else is a win. So that's really good, and I'm happy about how she's executing her task as a coach, as a head coach, in terms of her trusting in her players and the relationship that she had with the players. She had that relationship before, and so we knew that Sasha coming into this space would have been good for the Sunshine Girls on a whole. And so I'm really pleased with how she performed. I've not been inside since I left. I've not been a part of the training environment a lot, so I'm not sure how it is behind the scenes more. But in terms of what we see on court, if we're to look at and grade her based on what we see on the court, we should, I'd easily say she would have been at an 8 out of 10. And 8 because there's always room for improvement. And I'm sure there are things that she would go back and say that, okay, I can do this better for the team to be better.
And because she lost one game.
Yeah, so you took 1 point for that.
So 1 point for the loss and 1 for the draw. So she's 8 out of 10.
Yeah, we're going to wrap it there, because I was about to ask you to grade again, because this was seen as a not full strength Jamaica team, because pros like Katie and Dehaney, Romelda Aiken and Janelle Fowler were not a part of the team, but they performed efficiently. Yeah, so your final question then is, out of 1 to 10, a rating of the performance in the series?
There is, as Coach said in our interview as well, there is room for improvement. As I said earlier in the interview, how we started was very good, but we allowed them to come back, and so there's work to be done there. In terms of conversations with Sasha, in terms of our interview, she spoke about centre pass attack, in terms of how we're treating with those balls, and she had some concerns in one of the games. I know that for specialist coach Kurt Dale, he had a keen focus on the defensive centre pass. I know there were some things he was looking for, and I'm not sure we got all that we wanted from it, but the girls did well. And so
what's the score?
For the team perspective, I'm gonna say we are at a 6.5.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I agree with that as well.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But it also shows, like, how much better this team can potentially be, which is and should be frightening for the rest of the world.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of quality out there. Sean, as usual, thank you so much for joining us on the SportsMax Zone. We appreciate it. And whenever there's an opportunity to talk some netball, it's always great to have you.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's roll into a break. We'll be back with so much more on the SportsMax Zone, including track and field And we have Tiana Lee Terilang to tell you about what's happening with the young Adrenaline sprinter. That's coming up.